morning, welcome back to another yo-yo flight. Best yo-yos of 2024, as voted on by you, the fans. So, little caveat there, the fans that pay attention to vote on the items I put out there are probably G2 fans. So that might have swayed it a little bit to get extra G2s in here, or it's just because they are the best yo-yos. You decide. Anyways, the yo-yo flight is where I compare and contrast similar yo-yos. This is a little different since it's a big variety of yo-yos, so the direct compare and contrast won't be needed as much, but I'll do my best to compare them in a similar fashion and talk about them versus each other. These are not my reviews of a yo-yo. It is just doing my best to describe how a yo-yo plays and the feelings I get from it after playing it versus these other items. The lineup, the way I picked this lineup out of the list was, well, Loadout had the most votes overall, so it's going to go first, and then I stuck with the other monometals, did the bimetals, and then the orange. We'll get to it. One yo-yo that was in the top voting is not here, but we'll talk about that when we get to its point in the lineup as well. So the Loadout by G Squared Yo-Yos. This is MSRP, usually around $115. Colorway changes that drastically. Diameter 55.7 millimeters, width 46.55 millimeters, weight 64.6. Pretty comfortable in the hand, soft around the edges, pretty flat on those rims. I guess I don't really have to throw it. I throw the Loadout every single week for Loadout Tuesday and twice on Sundays for Fun Day. It's quick, it's agile, it's still powerful with being a quicker, easier to move yo-yo. Good stability for a monometal. It's not going to compete with the stability, I would say, of like the Wraith, but maybe some bimetals. It excels at many options here, and it doesn't kind of pigeonhole into one thing. Like I don't feel like it's an extra fast yo-yo. I don't feel like it's extra quick. It's fast, but not the fastest yo-yo I've ever played. It's just kind of a good baseline, a good starter here. But it does bounce very well from trick to trick. The stability stays up well throughout the wraps. If your hands aren't perfectly in place, you lose a lot of stability there. Plenty of rejection off of the little bump around that response. Maybe I'll have a little bit more on it when I'm directly comparing and contrasting it, but I don't have anything too specific to say about it. It just excels on many factors of the game. Next up, the Canopy AL. MSRP $95, diameter 54.9, width 46, weight 65.65. Similar-ish shape, a little bit more rounded going to that catch zone from the rims. A little bit of flare going in there as well. But very similar to the Loadout. While only being a millimeter smaller in diameter, it does feel a good bit smaller. Just back to back in my hand. Feels denser on the string. That could factor in with the size a little bit. Takes a little more to get it rolling, so I would say that it has a little more momentum on it than the Loadout did. Rejects okay, just fine. Yeah, a little more dense through those wraps. Stability is good too. Similar to the play of that Loadout there. Overall, a little more dense. A little more momentum, a little smaller. Up next, the One Drop Rainier, MSRP $74, diameter 56.35 millimeters by 48.3 millimeters, and 64.25 grams. I believe this is a larger version of the ever popular Cascade. Trick to the side effects. If it's not as smooth as you want, crank it as tight as you can. I'm not sure if that's actually suggested from the manufacturer, but that seems to be how I can get them the smoothest. First impressions here, soft in the hand, a little more comfortable. than the last two. Just that roundness to it hits my hand nice. Then taking it down a notch, so the way my thumb hits this middle section where that side effect is isn't perfect. Could be rounded. Okay, this is more Loadout-esque. It's a little more agile, a little more bouncy. A little bit of stability issues there wrapping through. Now yes, that is the user being unparalleled with their strings, or their hands perfectly in line. Parallel kind of, but yeah. But just kind of doing the same. Yeah, it twists pretty quickly when you're off playing. Maybe the comfort makes up for that, I think. And momentum, it needs a, so it's weird, it's bouncy. And I think maybe it's that width that it needs some more oomph to get it rolling, kind of like the Canopy. You got to give it a little more power, and then it has more power. This yo-yo, it's very bouncy across the strings, but then it needs a little more oomph to get it rolling, I think. And it doesn't fully want to keep up on those wraps. I can feel myself tugging it, so a little bit slower there. Overall, more comfortable in the hand, less stability, a little bit slower, bouncy. Up next we have the Evolution. MSRP 135, diameter 56.4, width 46 millimeters, weight 63.1 gram. Our lightest yo-yo so far. Also our biggest yo-yo in diameter. This one, I would say fast is the first thing I feel versus coming off the Rainier. A lot of power coming back to the hand. All four now have rejected just fine. I think this might be the most powerful for sure. I'm trying to decide, it's faster and more powerful, but it's also not like, doesn't take a ton of effort to get it rolling. Maybe a little bit more close to the amount of pull you have to put on the Canopy to get going, I would say, so it's not as agile as the Loadout. So let's see, most powerful, fastest of the bunch here. Comfort is fine, it's a little bigger, it has the stepped ridges here. Nothing to, like, I would still say the Rainier, like, it was one of those factors there. It was comfortable. Nothing to really be said about the Evolution in the hand for me as far as comfort wise, good or bad. Just feels like a yo-yo in there. Alright, our first bimetal, the Ring Bearer from MK1. MSRP $100, diameter 55.8 millimeters, 46.45 millimeters wide, and 64.15 on the weight. In the hand, feels pretty good. Kind of maybe closest to the Canopy, but still more angled. Not really a great comparison here. It's like between the Canopy and the Evolution. That stainless steel rim, you kind of, on the IRG, you can kind of feel the edge of it. Okay, this one takes a little more, and I think it's a jump now here. We're going from a monometal to a bimetal. So you have that extra weight out on the rims that is harder to get rolling, which makes sense. Should have a little more power. I didn't quite feel it coming back to the hand, but I definitely noticed that the stability increases from the last, well, actually, from all of them. Better stability than across the board, but there is an increase there from jumping off the Evolution to this with the stainless steel rims. Harder to get moving. It's hard to get through those wraps right there. Has a lot of momentum carrying it through from trick to trick, so very low on the agility scale, which doesn't mean it's not agile, that you can get it to bounce around, but in comparison, rejections are fine. I'm just missing the trick there. Yeah, it worked to get moving, and I think that's just coming off the monometals. I'm going to go back. I just played it against the Evolution, which had the most power of those by far. I'm going to take that all the way back to the Loadout, which I thought was the most agile. Yeah, it's like, I don't really have a great comparison, but it's like when you go from, I don't know, you're doing 20-pound reps on curls and then you switch over to a 6-pounder. It's just way easier to get that movement started. So I think that's just a bimetal thing, though. It's like a, you know, if this was a whole flight of bimetals, it'd probably be more comparable. I think I got an axle knot. So what I'm noticing here is it's harder for the flight, the way I have these set up to compare and contrast, to work out perfectly, just because of the fact that now I'm trying to compare a monometal to a bimetal, and they really don't try to hit that same category or play. There's just such a leap. It is just a ton more work to get this rolling, which makes sense. But you're also rewarded with the higher stability. I do get a little grabbiness when I'm rotating through like these underpasses. But nothing that's popped back to my hand. I've only noticed it a few times. Let's jump to the next one. Now this is where that other yo-yo came in. The Wraith was on the list as one of the best, but I just did that in the competitive bimetal flight, so if you want to know my thoughts on the Wraith, go watch that. So it had the same as the Arbiter X, AL7 Arbiter X to be specific, with stainless steel rims, MSRP 145, diameter 57.2, width 45, weight 60.4 grams. So that's going to play completely different. It's a pretty soft shape in the hand, kind of not that close to that. Less rounded on the rim as the Rainier. Not as flat as like that Ring Bearer. So like a hybrid shape there. It's the Arbiter shape. Really quick. Now this is a lot lighter than that Ring Bearer, so when we go bimetal to bimetal, there's still a big change here. That it's not work to get this to rotate around. This one feels the fastest overall and quickest. Where the Loadout has a lot of agility, this also has agility, but it does it quicker. Great stability right there with the Ring Bearer as being more stable than the rest. Evolution, Canopy, Loadout, all pretty similar. Evolution, a hair more stable, and then the Rainier at the least stable. Yeah, this is just very, very quick, very fast, very stable. A lot having to do, I think, with just that super light weight in comparison. Maybe a little less power there coming back to the hand, so a little less spin than the Ring Bearer. Last but not least, this perfect reason why the flights need to be similar. The Orange by UpDn. MSRP $120, diameter 77.95 millimeters by 68 millimeters wide, 84.8 grams. I opened this thing up and my reaction was, holy, that's huge. Seeing the specs online, even seeing it in videos. Did not expect it to be this shocking in person. Huge. closer to a Diablo than YoYo to me. It's huge. Shout out to everybody that let me borrow these YoYos as well. Thank you. Alright, it has a lot of that, like when I had the last flight, we had the Wild, and it had that kickback feeling. The Wild would feel normal playing with this. Like this, you feel it wrap and unrolling down that string, but it's also huge. So comfort level, it's huge. Stability, it's huge. No, comfort level, it's too big for the hand, but it's not painful. When I throw it, you kind of have to let it float and then pull it down. It's work to move. It's work to move, and it forces you to be intentional and slow. But it's so different than any yo-yos, and I think obviously that's the point of it, right? It's functional. Magic drop. Rejections aren't quite as good, but it's doing fine. It's the only one that didn't reject for me one of the times. Oh, that would have been slick. The only one to land it right away for me. Let's see, some functional use information for you. You buy this because it's a fun yo-yo to have in your collection. It's huge though, so it's also kind of a pain to carry around, I would assume. Unless you're throwing it in a backpack, it's not fitting in your FOV. It makes you be intentional, very deliberate with your tricks. It's very relaxed and slow. It's not something you're gonna, I mean you could, but you're not gonna push it through your speed combo. I think it's all about flow, and kind of like flow and performance here with this guy. Like mini yo-yos, I say, are very niche, and they're kind of like a throw every once in a while. This might be a little more often that you pick it up. Maybe just because it has to sit on your desk, can't be put away. But I find it a little more fun and usable than minis. I'm talking like mini, like a Mighty Flea or something that you throw once and then you're kind of done with it. This you're going to pick back up. Actual play characteristics, I don't have a ton else besides what I've just said, just because it's so different. I mean, it's not quite comparable to any sort of normal yo-yo. But it functions just fine, makes you play relaxed, deliberate, and slow. And it's huge. So that's kind of what we've got here. Alright, quick recap now, rundown of them all. The Loadout, it doesn't have one category that sticks out to me. Like the AL7 Arbiter X SS, it is fast and quick. It just goes. The Loadout kind of is just, it is quick, it is agile, it is bouncy, it is stable, it's powerful. It doesn't have one of those that just like, this is, boom, this is what I'm characterized as. Like, I don't know, it doesn't have something that's just like, this is what it's focused on. Canopy, kind of the similar boat as the Loadout, but it is denser, smaller, denser, and it takes more effort to get rolling. So maybe a little faster if you're going to compare it to the Loadout, but not as quick or bouncy. The Rainier, I think its biggest factor there was just comfort. It hits the hand, feels good. Plays nicely. It's on that agile, floaty, bouncy feeling. Lacks stability. Evolution, it's more of your, for lack of better wording, competition monometal. It had a lot more power behind it, It's fast. Doesn't feel small, but it did take more effort to get it rolling through the tricks. It has more momentum, but it didn't feel like the dents I would call the Canopy. But more power, more stability than those first three. Ring Bearer, hard to compare to the monometals. It has way more stability. Way more, that doesn't really define it, but if like the evolution is an 8 in the stability factor, the Ring Bearer is probably like a 9, so give it one bump up. And the Rainier is probably like a 6, so there's your differences. It's, I don't know, Loadout, Canopy, 7s. Maybe the Rainier's down to a 5, so 5, 2 7s, an 8, and a 9. But the stability stuck out, and I think it's just the bimetal factor. It had the most presence to where the momentum will carry you through, but it wasn't like it was overpowering with the momentum, that it was overly a chore to get to change direction. It just had the momentum you expect and the stability you expect with something with a bimetal. Arbiter AL7 X SS, it just sticks out, the speed and quickness of it. The orange, that's your fun boy, throw it in the backpack. That's the recap of the best yo-yos as voted on by you in 2024. Well, released in 2024. Anyways, happy throwing, thanks for watching. If you have a flight you'd like to suggest, make sure you drop it in the comments. I will do my best. What does that mean? Give me a category, and then I will do my best to find the yo-yos that fit that category.